Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm in Astrology. We're a little wobbly here because we're recording at home. But I would, um, the actual show that we're broadcasting from is now we're allowed to broadcast from home. And let me see if I can relocate myself and get rid of some of this glare. A lot of animation. I bet you didn't think you see this much animation in a video. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm out in the woods. All right. So basically, I'm going to talk to you this month. First of all, I want to thank Radio Nevada for Cable TV for increasing the time of the show to an hour. I'll be having guest speakers on. I'll be having more in-depth astrology lessons as we go forward. And I'll also be having guests from fairly prominent guests from around the world. And I think you'll be really happy with some of the people that we have invited. We'll have people from India, from Europe, from all across the United States, very prominent astrologers, very interesting people. And I want to introduce you to the wider world of Indian astrology and also different astrological systems and traditions. I'm going to apologize a little bit for my hair because I went for a haircut and the guy gave me what was called a gentleman's cut, but my hair is naturally curly and this was the result. So we'll get that fixed by the next broadcast. The major thing that I'd like to talk to you today about though, in addition to the regular forecast, is we have had some significant changes in basically astrologically. And if I can share the screen, if it'll let me, we have a lot going on. So this is a nice chart. You can see the chart today. We have a Scorpio rising at the time I'm talking to you. It's September 13th, 2020. And we have Jupiter and Ketu in Sagittarius. Jupiter has been retrograde for the past couple of months. And when Jupiter goes direct, things seem to start functioning right. Communications, knowledge tend not to be quite so ambiguous. They tend to be a little bit more straightforward. People are starting to follow ethical beliefs a little bit more strongly, and they're starting to be a little bit more honest. Saturn is retrograde still, as you can see from the chart. That little underline means Saturn is retrograde. And Ketu is really, this is going to be an important change over the next month. Ketu is really switching signs. It's in Mula Nakshatra. That's a very destructive nakshatra, but it changes and transforms people. So actually, people who have been up and down about what the right thing to do is, what the right action or course of action take is, at Ketu will move into Scorpio around September 23rd to 25th. And the reason I take that average time is because there's a difference in how the zodiacs, how Rahu and Ketu are measured, in Indian astrology. And one system uses what's called an average motion or a mean node, and another which was developed in the 20th century is called the true node. And I prefer the true node because I think it really nails things quite precisely. But Ketu is moving backwards into Scorpio. That's Ketu's exalted position. It's the place it likes to be most of all. So this will bring up a lot of secret information. This will bring up a lot of conspiracies. This will also bring up a lot of news, what I would call real news, as opposed to the tape loop news I think we've been stuck in over the past few months. So you're going to see virus breakthroughs. You're going to see um, breakthroughs also um, in terms of the streets. I think actually the streets will get more violent, not less violent, to be honest with you. And that's also because of Mars going retrograde this past week. So Mars has been going direct, and it's been a little bit, um, it's been showing some progress, but as it heads back towards Pisces, I think you're going to see more civil unrest, not just in the United States, but in the world. Um, if you look at this chart carefully, you'll also see this. So that Mars went retrograde last week, so a lot of changes, a lot of big changes happened last week. Venus is right in the middle of the sign right now. Mercury is really well placed right now. So Venus and Mercury are somewhat well placed, but the only obstruction to Venus right now is it's being aspected by Saturn in its own sign. Now, this is interesting because this is one of those rare occasions where we have a lot of planets in their own signs. So, and this won't last very long. But basically, this is an excellent time to start a project. Um, the only downside is that the moon is waning, and it's rather extremely waning. And when I say extremely waning, it's almost dark. But let me explain that in a few seconds. So basically, if a person wants to be famous, now is the time to do it. If a person wants to get rid of bad habits or escape from bad situations, now is the time to do it over the next week or so. And also, this will hold true really until the end of September, actually through mid-October. But if you look carefully, Jupiter's in Sagittarius, which is its own sign. Saturn is in Capricorn, which is its own sign. Mars is in Aries, which is its own sign. The moon is in Cancer, which is its own sign. And Venus is not in its own sign, but the sun is in its own sign, and Mercury is in its own sign. So all the planets are very strong right now by various measures and degrees. The sun is a little bit weak because it's high in degree. It's only got roughly three more days in this sign, 2 to 3 more days in this particular sign. Mercury's got another 12 days in the sign. It's really pretty much close to its maximum exaltation point, so communication should be extraordinarily good. Venus is strong by degree, so planets in the middle of a sign are very strong overall. So if you want to tell somebody how you feel about them, this is a really great time to do it. If you want to check up on them and see how they're feeling and just share your overall concern, it's a really good time to do it. Mars is aspecting Venus, so passions may get a little bit stronger than normal. Mars is also aspecting Moon, so thoughts may be a little bit more aggressive. I woke up this morning, I had a ton of energy. So that's what that Mars Moon aspect will do, and that Mars Venus aspect will do. And the sun's in its own sign, which makes us proud, makes us want to accomplish things, makes us want to do things. The only problem is the moon being where it is, aspected by Saturn, and in the same, and also waning as it is, makes us feel like we shouldn't start things right now. But actually, there's no good or bad point to start things. It's an excellent time for getting rid of or completing projects, and for actually setting up new projects, or for laying the groundwork for new projects. So next time you see me, I'll have podcast equipment set up. I'll have all the professional stuff that you need in order for the podcast to have greater quality, in order for this broadcast to have greater quality. But we're going to start this particular venture by thanking Greater New Bedford Cable TV. I'm still doing readings at Crystal Expectations. You can contact me at 508-990-7898 or at 508-525-0001. And it's at Crystal Expectations at Comcast.net. You'll see that information at the end. Also, some exciting news. I'm teaching at Kepler College right now. I'm teaching an Introduction to Vedic Astrology course. We're right in the middle of that exercise. We'll be teaching part 2 starting September 25th. Also, I have started an astrology school with one of my students, Mansurke Shine Devi, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be the best astrology school in the world, to be honest, because we're going to incorporate pretty much all elements connected with astrology. So we're going to include rituals, we're going to include um, mantra instruction, we're going to include um, pretty much everything that makes astrology above and beyond personality analysis and prediction. We're going to actually get into the meatier aspects of astrology, and that is how you can use it not only to determine what's going to happen, but also to affect it. So this will be, I won't say will be unique in that regard, but this is a stated purpose of the school. So, and we're also going to do it in a multi-language format. So we're not going to necessarily have an English-speaking bias like a lot of astrology schools do have. We're going to grab astrologers from around the world. We already have half a dozen or so extraordinarily talented astrologers and in several languages, and we're going to increase that. So essentially increase the number of astrologers we have. So I'm very excited about this project, and I think you will be too. And we're starting classes around the end of the month when Casey moves into Scorpio, but we'll provide more detail as we go on. So regardless of that, we have, so these planetary configurations are pretty important right now. So I want to get back to that again. Mars is, Saturn is in the sign in which Mars is exalted. Mars is in the sign in which Saturn is debilitated. So that actually gives us a certain amount of freedom to do certain things. I know a lot of people are really concerned about the COVID epidemic, and I want to share the U.S. chart just to show you what's happening with that. But let me just, before I even go there, let me just talk about what the next couple of months are going to look like. So we have basically, there'll be a lot of emphasis on illness and fighting illness with this chart that we pull up today. The government is actually going to get much stronger and much smarter over the next few months. The Jupiter-Ketu conjunction and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which will come around November after the election, actually will tend to give us much more of a punch in terms of fighting back disarray and also fighting back disease. The other thing I want to look at the space gas mapping chart, and if we look carefully at this is the astrocartography chart, and we want to look at parts of the world which are doing fairly well. So in terms of intelligence, actually it looks, surprisingly enough, we have a Mercury line passing through close to the United States and through Guyana and through Western Brazil and through Argentina. Now the Sun-Mercury conjunction line is good because you have a lot of activity which will show steady progress in terms of government and government's effectiveness. So this will actually be, so this Sun line and this Mercury line actually will show good results from government over the next month or so. So even though everything looks stalemated right now, everybody seems, it's election season, this is not a surprise. Everybody seems really combative. this will actually be helpful, the Sun-Mercury conjunction, because people will be very smart. And there's also a Rahu line running through Iceland, but that's not really going to hit anybody, but it'll hit India and Western Australia. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We have a Mars line close to the West Coast, and the Venus and the Moon line. And as we recall earlier, Venus, Moon, and Mars are all basically, Mars not so much, but Venus and the Moon are afflicted right now by Saturn. So that's why we've had the fires. The Mars actually does generate fires in the chart. Mars aspects the Moon, Saturn aspects the Moon. So we're going to be seeing, unfortunately, fires kind of perpetuating for the next couple of weeks, at least on the West Coast. The other thing is you're going to have to be careful about earthquakes and those kinds of activities over the next couple of months. If we move over to where the Rahu line is, Rahu is really not touching anywhere except Panama and Cuba. So I think you're going to see really bad hurricanes over the next couple of months in Cuba. Iceland, I'm not sure. There'll be a little bit of panic in Iceland. Maybe they'll have increased COVID cases. But over here, it passes through, so it is passing through central Russia and India and down by the Philippines and Western Australia. So those areas are going to be more prone to panic or more prone to disarray than you would normally see. And also some possibly, just my instincts are telling me some possibly a volcano or earthquakes in those regions. So this is Eastern India, Western Australia, Iceland, maybe a little bit in Newfoundland, and maybe a little bit in Panama. So some kind of panic scenario in those countries, and maybe even some problems with the governments. If we look over here carefully, we have a Jupiter line rising, going through Sweden, going through Russia, and going through China, and a Saturn line right next to it, and a Venus line right next to it, Venus going over to Japan. Now, the COVID vaccine that's being fast-tracked right now came out of England. So we do have a moon line coming through England or close to England. We don't have any other lines coming close. We have this little Rahu line going through Germany. So Germany could be in a panic mode, and also parts of Sweden and Norway could be in a little bit of a panic mode. If we go a little bit farther to the center of Turkey, and so we have a Jupiter line right in the middle of Turkey, and a Mercury line basically in the Sudan, right here, all the way down to South Africa. And we have a Saturn and a Mars line in Russia, so, and in Saudi Arabia. So there'll be some trouble, perhaps with illness in Russia, but the Mars line over here, there's some violence in central Turkey and just north of Turkey, but Jupiter's close to Ankara, Turkey, and that looks fairly good. Now, that's pretty protective. Again, the Turkish people, because of where they're located, they'll see a lot of small earthquakes. I don't think they'll see a lot of big ones, at least not over the next few years. And essentially, you have a Venus line going close to England. You'll see a lot of activity taking place, and I think you will see a virus cure coming out, or not a cure, excuse me, but a vaccine coming out. 2 months at maximum, and the main reason I'm saying that is basically because Venus right now is afflicted. It'll be a little bit afflicted about a month from now, and then after that, it'll be pretty much stable and secure. But you're going to see major breakthroughs in treatment of COVID over the next month or so, I think. In terms of a rise in demonstrations in the United States and around the world, the countries which are most prone to violence are going to be, you'll see a little bit of violence in, like I said, in Turkey, Central Russia, and you'll also see some problems with governments in Central Europe. So we're talking really about France, Germany, uh, Norway, and also some civil unrest in the United States, especially in the Midwest. Okay, so there'll be some rebellion against the government, but also incredibly uh, strong measures to put it down. Also, Mars over here next to the West Coast. I think you're going to see a lot more trouble on the West Coast. And this Rahu line over here intersects with the Sun line, so that is going to affect governmental discord uh, or, or disagreement with the government. So, and we're looking by, so let's look at the US map for a second. Now, the US map is, the US is pretty much in a state of transition right now. Basically, a lot of my fellow Western astrologers and some Vedic astrologers put a great deal of emphasis on Pluto returning to where it was when the United States was formed. And I think that's important, but working from Vedic astrology, I've never seen anything demonstrated by the outer planets that I can't explain by using the nine traditional planets. That is the seven basic planets and Rahu and Ketu. So essentially, we've had a lot of media um, um, trying to think of a good way to put it, because I don't want to offend anybody if they think I'm taking sides, but the media has gotten a little bit rambunctious is perhaps the right word to use, because they're panicking early and often. This is what a Rahu-Mercury combination does in their chart. Since you have Saturn also aspecting that right now, it'll make them essentially take the absolute most negative view on anything that's being discussed. So, so essentially, that's why almost every bit of news coming out of the media right now is either number one, it's negative, it's this isn't going to be over for a long time. This is a catastrophe. This is the worst we've ever seen, etc., etc., etc. And it's interesting because around 19 years ago, we had a similar transit of Rahu and Ketu, but we didn't have the same major planetary period we were working under. So essentially, when we had what happened in 2001, September 11th attacks in 2001, we had Rahu there, but it was a moon major planetary period. So there was a lot of focus on healing. Moon is in started Vishak Nakshatra in the US chart. There was a lot of focus on healing, on philosophy, on trying to figure out who these crazy foreigners were who were attacking us. And the moon is ruled by Rahu in that chart. So that's why there was such an emphasis on foreign countries. In this Mahadasha, Rahu is pretty much, this is essentially the most important planet right now. And Rahu is in the 8th house. So there's a lot of concern from all sides in the country about conspiracies. that's where Rahu's nature is. Rahu tends to be a panicky, paranoid planet, or graha. They call them grahas. So they seize us and they hold us in this vice of panic and fear and anxiety. And there's a real, and it's passing through this sign right now. So it's passing through Mars. It's really the thing I said. I think I said last winter time we were going to see a lot of demonstrations and a lot of civil unrest this year, and that was mainly because of Rahu passing over Mars, and it's still in that particular. It hasn't hit its peak yet. It'll hit its peak within about uh, uh, by next week sometime. So basically, that Rahu over Mars will tend to stay with us for a little while. It tend to stay with us at least until November, because Jupiter is fanning the flames. Jupiter over here in the first house is making people feel like they're not being given the whole story. They're being lied to, they're being manipulated. And this is true on both sides. This isn't just true on one side of the political fence. This is true on both sides. So everybody's a little bit screwy right now. Excuse my language. I don't mean to offend anybody, but everybody's just a little bit screwy and unreasonable right now. So basically, Rahu will move into the same sign with Ketu. That'll tend to disrupt the United States. I'm not seeing the United States really settle down for about another 14 years or so, to be honest with you, because this major planetary period lasts a long time. And you'll see a lot of disruption, a lot of demonstration, a lot of calls for reform, a lot of suspicion and distrust going on for quite a while, to be perfectly honest with you. And essentially, this election cycle, we've just been in a K2 subperiod, and K2's just crazy. K2's doesn't have any real connection. It's kind of hopeless. It doesn't know what to do. We're entering a Venus subperiod. Venus is much more reasonable. It's much more favorable to homeopathic or to cures, to medical cures. Venus is the planet which is in charge of, basically is in charge of medicine or cures. And so we'll have this Venus subperiod, which nobody will believe that a cure has come up. And right around the time of, so you'll have this Rahu Venus period where there'll be a lot of progress made, but nobody will really believe it up until October 8th to October 15th. You'll have, again, the sun will come up as a major planetary influence, so the government will essentially reestablish its authority. It'll be a little bit more aggressive than normal. And then between October 15th and October 26th, you'll see this big reform movement come in because the moon is in Sadabhishak Nakshatra. Sadabhishak is essentially a nakshatra connected with deposed kings. So you'll see, but then we'll enter Mars, and Mars will be out of the range of Rahu at that time. And this will, I think, I'm not even gonna, I've already spoken about who I think is going to win the election, so I'm not going to even go there again. But I think you'll see a re-election of the current president, even if the challenger gets elected. You'll still see this kind of disruption happening over the next 15 years. It's not going to go away soon. And actually, right in the election itself, November 2nd, you'll hit a Rahu, Saturn period. So we're leaving Jupiter, which is more, for the U.S. chart, is more disruptive and more warlike, and Saturn is more it brings out the more dictatorial elements in the United States chart. I hate to say it, but essentially, but Saturn is also the rule of the people. Okay, so essentially, it favors a populist, even if only in name, being elected or reelected. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. and also factors between the two charts. That's what I'm saying. But on a good note, the economy will stagnate for a little bit between September 16th and October 8th. But after October 8th, it'll surge forward again. And after October 15th, you'll see a lot. I won't say you'll see the lockdown lifted, but you'll see a lot of states coming out of that particular mode. And between October 26th and November 2nd, you'll see a lot of angry people heading to the polls. So this is going to be an interesting election, no matter who wins. And keep in mind, I have no vested interest in either party winning. I'm just looking at this as an astrologer. So at least, and if we look at the U.S. chart, the fifth house of the U.S. chart has 43 points in it. That actually reflects favorable past life karma. So the United States chart actually is a good chart. It's not an evil place. It doesn't like its leaders, though. You have 16 points in the ninth house. That indicates it never has had much faith in its leaders, to be truthful. And it's a very self-sufficient, it's a very resilient country with 34 points in the first house. But its fifth house gives it tremendous luck. I mean, that's really about as strong as you can go, and tremendous self-reliance. So I think, at least from this chart, this period right here will tend to show a lot of self-reliance between October 26th and November 2nd. The other thing I want to get to, so let's go through the signs for the next few weeks and October. So let's go back to the chart. And this is wrong. New Bedford. That's foreign based. And it doesn't matter if it's male or female, it's just a chart for what's happening right now. So let's start with sign by sign. We'll start with Leo because that's where the sun is as I'm talking to you right now. Leos will have a lot of intelligence, a lot of gains, some good and unexpected luck, but a lot of delays in what they want to do. Saturn will delay them. They'll be a little bit afraid to take chances. Mars is in the ninth house, so if they're courageous and they're willing to overcome obstacles and enemies, they'll actually achieve a great deal of fame, but they'll actually spend a lot of money. They'll have to be careful about spending a lot of financial money, a lot of finances, especially in relationships. Virgo suns, that's between September 15th and October 15th. That's my sign. I'm an October 1st baby. This particular chart is very good for them over the next month and a half. And basically, you'll have unexpected good news at home. Although, again, delays or obstructions in luck, and some problems in relationship life, not because of anything wrong, but relationship life partners will be slowed down, and actually some inheritance of property or some possibility of getting additional gains from the relationship partner. Rahu in the 10th house will give these people some fame or some recognition. Moon and Venus in the 11th house will give some financial benefits, and Sun in the 12th will give them a lot of spiritual activity over the next month or so. For Libra Sun, that's essentially October 15th through November 15th. You'll see a lot of, you'll see a lot of you'll see a lot of excuse me, I had an interruption. You'll see a lot of financial gains for them, a lot of intelligence, a lot of luck. October 15th to November 15th. a lot of courage to pursue what they believe in, although home life will be a little bit troubled or a little bit difficult to deal with. And also, there'll be a tendency towards fighting with relationship partners. That shows up pretty strongly for a lot of Libras over the past year, but that's going to still be strong. Uh, so relationship partners will be strong-willed or very aggressive. Business partners as well. Career-wise, they'll do fine, although they may find themselves changing career or heading towards new job opportunities. And financially, they'll do extremely well. Um, for Scorpio Sun, you have Scorpios in the um, Scorpio's Lord is Mars is in the sixth house. They'll be focused a lot on illnesses and diseases. And I think one of the things you'll see is that this particular sign will be a little bit more um, prone towards seasonal allergies and other of those kinds of illnesses. Also, they'll have to be careful about who they talk with. Um, Jupiter in K2 in the second house is a protective placement. It's really not a bad placement, but they'll have to be careful who they listen to and who they take advice from. Saturn in the third house, no lack of bravery for Scorpio. At this particular point in time, they'll tend to do pretty well in terms of bravery, and after encountering some minor setbacks, they'll be able to achieve their goals. Rahu in the eighth, relationship partners will be difficult. This is pretty much true throughout the chart. They'll have some problems or some arguments with relationship partners over money, but their overall luck will be good, and their overall career life and financial life will be very good. For Sagittarius rising, that particular sign is going to have a lot of confusion over relationship partners. They'll tend to have they'll tend to want people they can't have, or have people they don't want in their lives. And they really won't know it themselves what they really want. They'll be a little bit confused about relationship partners. That'll pass after September 25th, but again, it's sort of a confused profile for them over the next couple of years. The other thing to keep in mind is that this sign is about to change signs, so it's about to go into Capricorn. So Sagittarius, which is normally a rather aggressive sign, will tend to be a little bit more withdrawn and a little bit more careful in how it speaks. And maybe it's just a little bit stupider in how it tends to spend its money, less cautious in how it tends to spend its money. The other thing is, at least for this sign, Mars is in the fifth house, so there'll be some additional problems with children, although, again, there's good potential for inherited luck from relationship partners and from love affairs. And Rahu moving from this sign into the sixth house, they'll start to acquire strong enemies, but basically, these enemies will help them compete. They'll help them make good progress in the world. And Rahu over here in the seventh house, that's where the confusion over relationship comes. So somebody might be affected to somebody because they're a little bit attracted to somebody because they're a little bit exotic or a little bit unique looking, and that draw will fade away a little bit over the next month or so. I can't underscore how important the K2 to Scorpio and Rahu to Sagittarius shift is, especially for certain signs, because it's going to change the entire focus of what you've been looking at in terms of what you want. So there'll be a shift between Rahu and Gemini wanting a lot of excitement and a lot of exposure to wanting a lot of financial security. Okay. K2 moving to Scorpio will shift from basically from high philosophical concepts to essentially how can we turn inward and change ourselves as opposed to changing the world. And it's going to be a massive shift. It won't happen all at once. You're not going to turn one day and the next day it'll shift over to these. But you'll see yourself getting more and more concerned about financial security and inner peace over the next few months. The other thing is, so for Sagittarius, the other thing is, career-wise, it looks fine. It'll be very sharp and very intelligent in career, have a lot of good luck and a lot of financial success through relationship partners. Saturn is in the first house for Capricorn rising. For Capricorn rising, you have, so this is what they call, and Jupiter is what they call a great personality yoga or a great personality combination. So is Virgo. So these are special things when the planets are in the first house and they're in their own sign or they're exalted. So Saturn is in its own sign. So Saturn and Capricorn will make that sign very, very security conscious, extraordinarily security conscious, very much able to take command, very practical, very conservative. And that practicality and conservatism will actually follow over to relationship choices. So if people have strong Capricorns in their charts or Capricorn's moons, they'll be worried about the security or stability of their loved ones. They'll be worried about to the point where they're almost suffocating them a little bit. And also, home life will seem to be, we've had such a strong emphasis on home life since Saturn entered that sign. There'll probably be less interest in going out, less interest in seeing new things, but that'll loosen up after November 12th. But over the next couple of years, you'll probably see that. Everybody will still be a little bit spooked or scared of infection, and that'll continue on through most of the next couple of years. It doesn't mean that the pandemic will last that long. It just means that people will be very, very cautious or very, very conservative about going outside. Also, from the chart, Mars is in the fourth house. Because of this feeling of being trapped or being internally locked in, Mars aspects Venus, so we'll probably be nicer to relationship partners, but also, gosh darn it, we're going to be anxious to get out, especially for over the next 3 to 4 months. The other thing is, it'll cause more fights at home. Just in general, domestic violence will probably increase. It's just a general statement. I'm not saying statistically I can prove that, but just that's one of the general significations. And also, arguments at home will be easier to come by. But there'll be a sweetness by this Moon-Venus conjunction, which will offset it, at least for the balance of the month, for the balance of September, but it'll get a little bit worse in October. The fifth house lord is Venus, so children will be a little bit antsy, a little bit nervous, a little bit difficult to control. Rahu's in the sixth, there'll be a lot of panic for the sign over illness or any kind of health threat. Sun is in the eighth, confidence for the sign will not be strong, it'll be a little bit weak, but it'll be optimistic, overall optimistic. Mercury's in the ninth house, basically that's a good placement for luck, for financial luck, and the Lord of the 10th, career life will feel kind of constrained or kind of limited, kind of boxed in over the next couple of months. Jupiter's in the 12th house, so a lot of spiritual activity for the sign, a lot of spiritual interest. If we move to Aquarius, Aquarius has the sun in the 7th house, so this sign will be almost obsessed with relationships, almost obsessed with finding a bright, shining star for relationship-wise. And Mars is in the 3rd house. Mars will also give it a great deal of courage, a great deal of ambition. Moon and Venus are in the 6th house, so personal happiness will be a bit of a struggle. They'll feel a little bit tied down by where they are. relationship-wise. And Rahu is in the fifth house, so that means children will be difficult to please or difficult to make happy. Sun is in the seventh. We've already spoken about that a little bit. So there'll be a definite draw towards somebody who's confident, somebody who can take command, somebody who's sure of themselves as opposed to somebody who waffles a lot. And that's one of the reasons I think we have a higher probability of the incumbent getting in than the challenger, because the U.S.'s moon is in the sun. But getting onto this again, not really wanting to make anybody really, really angry at me. That's not the point of this. Mercury's in the eighth house, so again, inheritance through land or inheritance through business dealings. So that's some unearned money will come in. Ninth house lord is Venus. The lord of the ninth house is in the sixth house, so that means luck with some struggle and some legal assistance. And Jupiter's in the 11th, unexpected financial gains from friends. Saturn's in the 12th, though this sign will still feel a little bit will still lack confidence in itself. That's coming from two directions. If we go to Pisces, Pisces is strong for property, strong for speech. Again, anxious about health, but children will tend to be good, a little bit frustrated or a little bit bored at home. And relationship-wise, they'll tend to attract happy or sparkly people. So people who are very gregarious, very friendly, very happy to be, very easy to be around. Career-wise, this sign looks good. Saturn aspects the first house, so there'll be a lot of work and even a lot of part-time jobs this sign will find itself trying to get. And as a matter of fact, just looking at this chart, the yogi point, which is a point connected at YP, is a point connected with wealth. So anything connected with water or service or anything like that will be a great source of wealth for anybody during this next month and a half. Mars is in Aries in the first house. This is another great personality yoga. It's called Aruchaka yoga. It's actually very logical. It's a very logical yoga. So this planet will have a lot of, or this sign will have a lot of emphasis on physical activity. This is April 15th to March to May 15th. And they'll feel a lot more energetic. Mars aspects the moon and Venus in the fourth house, so home life will be good, but there'll be a lot of energy and a lot of aggression over the next month or so. Sun is in the fifth house. Children will assume a lot of the sign's responsibility. Mercury's in the sixth house. That's not bad. It's good for health overall, or any illnesses will be very short-lived and very easy to treat. Seventh house has no planets in it, although Venus is located in the fourth house. So this may give essentially a really heartfelt relationship for a person. Scorpio is the eighth house in this chart. The Lord of the eighth is in the first, so there'll be a lot of interest in exploring and discovering new activities, searching for behind the scenes. And Jupiter's in the ninth house and Saturn's in the 10th house, so very good for career, but a lot of hard work. Taurus has, that would be essentially in this chart, that would be from May 15th to June 15th. This sign will be going through a transition this year. They'll have a lot more focus on financial security and stability, especially after September 26th. They've had a strong desire for money over the past year or so, past year and a half, but it's been frustrated. And Moon and Venus are in the third house, so there'll be a lot of ambition, a lot of desire for luxuries or for education from this chart. Sun is in the fourth house. It's in its own sign in the fourth house, so home life and parents become very important to this chart. Mercury's in the fifth house. good for children. Children will be smart, well educated. There are no planets in the sixth, so it doesn't look like there are any health problems for this chart. Seventh house lord is Mars. Relationship life will be challenged for this sign over the next month. Again, this isn't Western Taurus. This is Eastern Taurus, which again is May 15th to June 15th. I think I gave you the wrong date before, so it's May 15th to June 15th. The other thing is Jupiter's in the 8th house, so there's good potential gains from a relationship partner, and Saturn aspects, and Saturn's in the 9th house in this chart. So hard work, slow and steady progress, especially over the next 5 years for this chart, for this planet. For Gemini, Gemini has had a very challenging year and a half. It's really had a lot of things both given to it and stolen from it because of K2 being in this sign and Rahu being in this sign. And what I mean by that is they achieve a fair amount of fame or recognition, but they have work security stolen from them because of K2 changing signs. This will not be true after September 25th. They'll have more work stability, more work activity going on. They'll be able to travel a little bit if they so wish to. And overall, from this chart, they'll also have Rahu out of that first house, which will be so important for them in terms of clearing and determining what they really want from life. Because right now they've been attracted to a lot of the glitz and glamour. And I'm not saying that people wouldn't normally want that kind of a thing, but they'll want to settle down. They'll want to be more stable, more secure, less nervous. And Rahu's also been doing a number for this sign because it's been making them more anxious about things. It's like having Saturn in the first house. It's really a pretty bad placement. The other thing is it's not bad by science. So it'll give them a lot of recognition, but they're always worried about losing it. They're always worried about getting more. Money should be good, although variable. Ambition levels will be very strong this month and into October. They'll be sharper about marketing themselves and putting themselves out to the public. Relationship partners should increase a little bit, but then they'll stabilize around November 15th. And overall, this planet has Mars in the 11th house. There's nothing it can't do once it sets its mind to it. So this chart looks good for career for them finally after September 26th. It looks more stable. And also, at least from the chart, you'll start to see more pairing out of illusion versus reality. So, and what I mean by that is this sign has big ambitions or big dreams. It can achieve them all. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it won't achieve them, but it's a little bit tough for them to achieve them right now because of the circumstances that they're in their environment. But they will actually manage to achieve them after Rahu goes into Taurus. And that'll be at the end of this month, at the end of September, excuse me. So at least from this one, career stability will return, focus on goals will return, and they'll be very smart in terms of knowing themselves and making what they want happen for themselves. Then the last sign we're going to look at is Cancer. Cancer has a Moon Venus conjunction in the first house. That's very good. That's very positive. Sun is in the second house, so it's good for financial growth. Mercury's in the third. That's good for communicating with people, realizing your desires and your ambitions. Jupiter is with K2 in the sixth house, so there is some fear of disease, although the risk of it is pretty low at this particular point in time. Saturn's in the seventh house, so the relationship life will not seem pleasant or happy there'll be delays or problems in relationship partners, or you'll attract older or differently aged relationship partners. It doesn't necessarily have to be older, but it'll be somebody from a significantly different background. Mars is in the ninth house. I'm sorry, the 10th house. That's very good for career success. This planet will tend to do extremely well career-wise during the following month. So the following month and a half. So that's about it. I'm going to return and try to keep cranking these out every week, just so they're easy for you to access, both on cable and online. I am going to expand and ask guests to attend, and I don't have a start date for that. I am going to try to make it look much more professional through use of better equipment. And again, we have some good news coming up about the schools, the active teaching environments. I still accept students one-on-one. I still accept readings for people. If you want to contact me, 508-525-0001 is the best, or you can visit me at Crystal Expectations or email me at crystalexpectations@comcast.net. And I think that's about it for me for this week. We're coming up to the 1 hour time limit. Again, I want to thank Greater New Bedford Cable TV for giving me this opportunity. And I'll see you all really, really, really soon. Okay. Namaste. Don't worry. Don't panic. Don't be afraid. There's some real progress being made over the next few months. All right. Thanks.